And this guy is among the elite of British culture, isn't he? A member of Monty Python and an iconic film director.
Absolutely. Terry Gilliam is right up there at the top. He was, as you say, he was in Monty Python, who are globally well known for their innovations in comedy. And yet he finds himself a very controversial figure these days because he has supposedly incorrect opinions. So, for example, he defended Dave Chappelle, the comedian who caused a storm, by making jokes about transgenderism. Terry Gilliam has also said that he's sick of white men being blamed for every problem in the world. He even said that Me Too became a little bit of a witch hunt. In my view, these are perfectly legitimate points of view, but they cause offence to the woke set, and therefore the knives are out, and it looks like he's been cancelled from a production at the Old Vic Theatre, which I think is a real shame if people are being cancelled simply for having the supposedly wrong political views.
Well, that's right. I mean, this man's been cancelled for having an opinion. He's not broken any law. And in fact, his proposal for this production was personally approved by Stephen Sondheim, among the greatest living composers. And yet that's not good enough. Being an artistic genius is not sufficient. You've got to toe the party line. You've got to follow the prescribed woke narrative, which, by the way, Brendan, changes every day.
Exactly right. And as you say, this was a production of Into the Woods. This is a Stephen Sondheim musical. Sondheim, of course, is one of the cultural giants of the 20th century. And he approved Gilliam's production for the Old Vic. And still, that wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to have Terry Gilliam. It wasn't enough to have Sondheim's approval. Still, he was hounded out for having these particular views. And that's where it does become a little bit like McCarthyism, because the whole point of McCarthyism in 1950s America, particularly in Hollywood, is that you would be blacklisted, not because you were a bad film director or a bad actor, but simply because you had certain left-leaning communist views. Now, in 2020's Britain, supposedly enlightened free country, you can be blacklisted from the theatre world by the looks of things, and from the publishing world and from the arts world, if you criticize transgender politics, if you aren't sufficiently woke, if you don't bow down at the altar of gender fluidity and all the other politically correct ideas. So it's a new species of McCarthyism. It's the return of the blacklist, where people are being hounded simply for their moral and political convictions.
Now, Brendan, you know as well as I do that one of the sort of common terms around extreme political correctness is go woke, go broke. But there's another concern, which is if you're going to cancel Terry Gilliam, if you're going to cancel J.K. Rowling, Ricky Gervais, Dave Chappelle, the historian David Starkey, then art, history, literature is just going to get worse and worse, because if you eliminate these unique and talented voices, who wants to read any books or watch any comedians if the likes of Rowling and Chappelle aren't there?
That's right. And that's the problem with wokeness. It has no consideration at all for the importance of art, the importance of ideas, the importance of humour, all of those things, which are really things that keep us going. All of that is seen as being secondary to the importance of everyone thinking the exact same thing and agreeing with the woke narrative. They see that as the ultimate aim of society, and everything else just plays second fiddle. So they think nothing of cancelling famous authors like J.K. Rowling or hilarious comedians like Dave Chappelle. They don't mind destroying comedy, destroying culture, destroying Terry Gilliam's new production of Into the Woods, so long as it serves their cause of promoting this regressive, authoritarian, woke agenda. So there's a ruthlessness to this. And the other thing is, if they can cancel such giants as Gilliam and Rowling and others, what could they do to ordinary mortals like us? So people further down the pecking order should be worried too, because if they will come for those people, they'll come for anyone.
Well, the real horror show is that we won't know people have been cancelled because they're cancelling themselves, aren't they, Brendan? We heard recently the celebrated author Sebastian Faulks, who wrote the best-selling and award-winning Birdsong, which is an amazingly moving novel about the First World War. And he was proud of the fact that he doesn't write female characters anymore. He said he felt liberated because previously, when he's done that, he's received dog's abuse. But actually, it's bad news that a male author cannot create a female character. And it's an example of creative people censoring themselves, which is, for me, the road to hell.
Yeah, self-censorship, I think, is the key problem here. And the real issue with cancel culture is the chilling effect it has across society. So we all hear about the big, shocking stories, Terry Gilliam, J.K. Rowling, and so on. We all hear about the big, starry stories about cancellation. But we don't hear about the ones that happen lower down, or the people who, as you say, censor themselves in order to avoid cancellation. And that is happening in workplaces, that's happening in universities. If you look at Kathleen Stock, the professor at Sussex, who was hounded out simply for having gender-critical views, imagine how many academics there must be who share her views but don't want to put their head above the parapet and express themselves. So there's a lot of self-censorship going on. There's lots of chilling of open discussion and free thought. And that's the real terrible achievement of cancel culture. It really strangles debate across society, and that makes it harder for us to understand the world we live in and have free discussions about the best way forward.
And I know countless academics, medics, scientists who are afraid to speak out about COVID measures, including lockdowns and face coverings, for fear of their careers or public admonishment, even though many of those voices, esteemed voices in the scientific community, take the view that lockdowns don't work. Well, maybe they do, maybe they don't, but we ought to debate it. And sadly, those days are long gone.